This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Welcome to today's Shiur. We're continuing in Sefer Devorah, and yesterday we began the second chapter, Parak Beis, and Parak Beis began that a person needs to develop the conduct where one emulates what is called Middah Kesser, which is the highest of all the Middos. And the Devorah says that the Middah of Kesser is primarily noticed and recognized in the Rosh, in the head, and that is because the Middah of Kesser, being the closest to the Ribbono Shel Olam, does not look back and up at the Ribbono Shel Olam, but rather looks down at the lower spheros. And furthermore, it's always looking down to be meitiv, and nothing is beneath its dignity. So in order to follow that, we emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the Middah of Anivos, through the Middah of humility, that nothing that somebody does should mitigate or should weaken our dedication and our devotion to showering Chesed on other people. Now, we're up today to the second Middah, and the first Middah was more the position of the Rosh. The Rosh should be positioned so that there's a noticeable humility where one does not look down on anybody, but instead is focused on them. In other words, one does not raise their head high. It's not really the literal positioning of the head, but it's more the figurative positioning of the head, that one has an attitude that it is not beneath my dignity to bestow kindness on anybody. And now we talk about more the pnimius of the Rosh, the internal of the mind, and that is the thought. Machshavtoi tidmeh lemachshavas hakesser. One's thought should emulate the thought of Midas Kesser. K'moisha oisa hachachma, just like the chachma of Kesser, leisifsoik tamid, does not cease ever. Lachshoif machshavos tovos, from thinking good thoughts. The Middah of Kesser and the mode of operation of Kesser is it's always thinking good thoughts. V'hara lo yikanes ba, evil does not enter in the realm of Kesser. Because Middah of Kesser is complete mercy. Ve'ein shum din, no judgment. V'lo shum koshi klal, there is no difficulty there. In other words, the Middah of Kesser is only pure mercy, complete chesed and rachamim. Kacha adam tamid, so to a person always. Tia machshavtoi penuya, person's mind should always be clear. Mikol davar mechayar, from any unseemly thing. In other words, one should guard their mind. Now we're always used to guarding our mouth, what we say. We know we have to guard our eyes from what we look at. Now we have to guard our mind from impropriety. Don't allow improper thoughts to enter your mind. Don't allow unseeming thoughts to enter your mind. Unseemly thoughts to enter your mind. Be careful what you read. Be careful who you talk to. Be careful what ideas enter your mind, because you want your mind to emulate the Middas HaKesser. And the Middah of Kesser is pure Hatava and pure Chesed. Rav Goldberg brings from his Zayda, Rabbi Yosef Yehuda Leib Blach, in his Shirei Das, in the Maimar Behiros Hadas. He says, if we were to conceptually paint the development of thought in HaKadosh Baruch Hu and in a human being, so when a person has a new idea, it's like a small dot that encompasses the entire thought. And then the matter widens, and from there, after you have the thought, comes ratzon, the desire to carry it out, and then mingle within it the details of how to carry it out. And it's the same thing with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When he had the idea to create the world, it began with the nekuda, the dot of what is called Kesser. And that thought process, and that original idea and motivation and notion was purely Chesed. God created the world purely for Chesed. Now, sometimes the details of how he carries out certain functions in this world and phenomenon in this world may have to be b'midas hadin. But if we would go back to the nekuda ketana, that little dot of where it all began, the nekuda ketana, that little dot that encompassed everything the Rebbeinu Shalom intends to carry out, is kulay chesed v'rachamim. Likewise, one's mind should always be occupied with midas hachesed and midas harachamim, even if sometimes the way we implement it, sometimes it will have to be din. Sometimes the person has to take a strong stance. Sometimes the person has to reprimand. Sometimes the person has to uphold the halacha. But in terms of the motivation and the nekuda ketana from within, of where it all originates from, it should originate from the midah, the point of Kesser, which is midas harachamim. Now, today's limud is a very big challenge. Just like this is the secret of the wisdom of the original Torah. There is a concept that Chachmas HaTorah, which is the world which is closest to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the world of Torah, which is the place of complete Rachamim, and Rav Goldberg brings down, he heard from Rav Weintraub, that's why in the Gemara we find that the Torah is called Rachmana. That Torah was original, preceded even the Olam, even Olam HaAtzilos. So that means in Midas HaKesser, what we have is, in Midas HaKesser, we have the secret of the earliest Torah. V'lo yechsar sham soid Torah. There is no secret of Torah missing there. In other words, in the realm of Kesser, it's just Torah. Kesser again is that point of thought from which all of creation came from. All the details and all the manifestation of creation originated in that point of Kesser. That point of Kesser is the earliest concept of creation, and that is where the Torah is. That means Torah occupies fully what is called the realm of Kesser. So likewise, if we were to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the way we emulate that is we don't allow our mind, even momentarily, at any point, to deviate from thinking about Torah. This means not when we're learning. Of course when we're learning. That means when we're walking down the street. When we're walking down the street, that means we have committed to memory a page of Gemara to review while we're walking down the street, or a little Gemara, so that we could glance at and occupy our mind with Torah while we're walking, while we're in a store, while we're waiting online, while we're lying down, when we're getting up. That is the way we emulate Midas HaKesser. And if a person finds that hard to do, pick a good kasha or a good teretz and have go-to ideas and thoughts to think about. Now, this requires practice because the human mind is very weak today. But Rav Goldberg brings that Rabbi Cheskel Abramsky testified about himself that from the time that he was 20 years old, he was made. He never diverted his mind from the Torah. Not when he was walking, not when he was traveling, not when he was lying down, not when he was sleeping, not when he was breathing, not when he was eating. From age 20, now we're not talking about 2,000 years ago. We're talking about 25 years ago, 50 years ago. He says, before 20 I can't tell you, but from age 20 and on I could be made. And we find that the Beis Yosef had a Magid who would learn with him, and he reprimanded him when he allowed his mind to wander. He said, for one to emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the fullest sense, obviously we're not on this madrega that we can do this at every spare moment, but whenever we can, we are implementing and we are practicing emulating Hashem. In other words, we're developing our mind to emulate. And you have to know, the mind was created in the paradigm and in the model of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So by thinking Torah while you're walking, this is a great way to emulate Midas HaKesser and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't allow the mind to wander. Kach lo yifne el shum pniya. Do not allow the mind to wander to any alternative concept, chutz mimachshavas haTorah, except for thoughts of Torah. V'lach shoiv begedulas hakel. Okay, if you don't want to think about Torah, think about the greatness of the Creator. Walk down the street, think about what the greatness of the Creator, what a master chemist he is, where he was able to create a chemical called air. Air is oxygen, nitrogen. Hashem was able to create water. He was able to take 2 atoms of hydrogen and combine it with 1 atom of oxygen. If you're thirsty and you inhale hydrogen, it ain't going to do anything for you. If you're thirsty and you inhale oxygen, it's not going to do anything for you. If you're thirsty and you inhale double the hydrogen to oxygen, it's also not going to do anything to you, other than you would pass out and your voice would sound very squeaky if you inhaled too much oxygen. And yet the Rebbe Shalom takes 2 gases, mixes them together, and produces water. This is thinking about the greatness of the Creator. Think about His good activities. Ulehetiv, think about how to benefit others. This is all an emulation of Midas HaKesser, v'chayotze. Klaloi shel davar, here's the upshot. Lo yikanes zar ubatel. Do not let a stranger enter your mind. A stranger refers to improper thoughts. Ubatel, don't let empty thoughts enter your mind. So you say, it's so hard, so God did you a favor. There's no baseball. Okay, so there'll be a half a season. But at least until it starts, you don't have to waste your mind. You can emulate HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem did us a favor. There's no professional sports. Nothing happens in the news. Maybe once every 4 weeks there's something new. If you want to know the news for the next month, I'll tell you right now. Today, hydrochloroquine is good. Tomorrow it's bad. The next day it's good. And the next day it's bad. Also, eggs are healthy for you today. Tomorrow they're bad. The next day they'll be good for you. That's all you need to know. That you're good for the next month in terms of the news. Anything else? All the Democrats in the state are decreeing anti-Semitic laws against the Jewish people, and you could do anything except for go to shul and go to camp. That's all you need to know. You're good right now. You're good until November, until the next elections. So don't allow empty thoughts. Zar are improper thoughts. Ubatel are empty thoughts. V'machshavtai. And if you think this is impossible, think there is a human being alive in our century, Rabbi Cheskel Abrams, who said from age 20, never even once did he let his mind wander. So, if you're walking down the street, listen to a shiur, or commit something to memory, or even do it for 1 block. How's that? Even if you do it for 1 block, because then after 120, then you could say, Rebbeinu Shalom, I emulated Midas HaKesser. The Malachim are going to say, when, what, how? What do you mean when? On June 24th at 5:30, I went outside, and for 1 minute, I thought about what it means to emulate the Midas HaKesser b'machshavti. Wow, you're already a head taller than 99% of everybody else. So even if you don't do it, even if you just do it 1 time, it's a very big madrega. This was the madrega of Reb Shimon and his friends, that they never allowed their minds to wander. They committed, they were dedicated to utilize, again, we're not talking about learning time, we're talking about downtime, line time, waiting for Verizon to answer your phone call. So anyway, they're not going to get to you for 17 minutes. So you might as well use your time to think about Torah. Ure'eh and see, Kishehifrid Rabbi Yossi machshavtei ma'at, when Rabbi Yossi allowed his mind to wander slightly, Kama lechicha Reb Shimon b'Zohar b'Parshas Vayakel, how Reb Shimon reprimanded him in Parshas Vayakel. Rav Goldberg brings down this Zohar HaKadosh, that the Zohar says Rabbi Yossi was thinking about Mili Da'alma, and Reb Shimon said, Amar le Yossi kum ashlim diyuknok da'at chad chasar b'cha. I need to fix up your image of Hashem because you're not contemplating, your mind is wandering now. And then Rabbi Yossi went back to contemplating Torah, and Reb Shimon said, okay, now you resemble HaKadosh Baruch Hu. By the way, so you say, how could I do this at all times? I can't learn in a Beis HaKisei, I can't learn in the bathroom. So the Rav Goldberg brings down from the Nefesh HaChaim in Shar Daled, that even though you're not allowed to think about Torah in the bathroom, but to have correct thoughts, to cling to Tahara, to dedicate yourself to good midos, you're even allowed to think in a Beis HaKisei. And he brings from Rabbi Weintraub in the name of the Alter of Kelm that even though you're not to learn Torah in the bathroom, but to think, what are the reasons that I have to love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that you're even allowed to think about in the Beis HaKisei. So this is a great challenge of emulating Hashem b'machshavtenu. And even though somebody may look at another human being and not recognize even how they're emulating Hashem, but know that even if you could walk a few footsteps thinking about Torah, besides the fact that the schar for learning is la'ein shir, but you are completely transforming your entire being to be more tselem Elokim. Okay, Rabbi said, thanks so much for listening. Have a great day. And Yaakov Grant in Manchester, you could in London, you can have a great night. Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.